Matt woke up with a start, jolted from his sleep by a sharp noise that shattered the silence of the house. For a moment, he lay there, disoriented, trying to grasp what had just happened. He turned to glance at the bedside clock. It was 4:38 a.m. Beside him, Lauren was deep in slumber, her face buried in the pillow, her tousled blonde hair spilling across the sheets. Her breathing was calm and rhythmic, blissfully unaware of the disturbance that had pulled Matt from his dreams. He remained still for a few seconds, cocooned under the covers, attempting to convince himself that the noise had been a figment of his imagination. But then he heard another sound, softer this time, like the clink of a spoon against the floor, drawing his gaze toward the dark hallway. It was real. They had temporarily moved into Lauren's mother's house while their apartment underwent renovations. The work had only just begun, but the old pipes had forced the contractors to tear up floors and walls, practically dismantling the entire bathroom. So here they were, in that old house with faded walls and 80s furniture, in the room that had once belonged to Lauren as a child. It was now filled with a creaky twin bed and a rickety dresser. Matt carefully rose, trying not to wake Lauren. The mattress emitted its usual metallic groan as he shifted his weight. He quickly threw on the shirt he had left hanging on the chair and swung his legs over the side of the bed. The tiled floor was cold against his feet, sending a shiver up his spine. He noticed his slippers were under the bed but didn't feel like searching for them. He tiptoed into the hallway, the dim light from a street lamp filtering through the living room curtains, casting an eerie glow. The atmosphere felt surreal, as if the house itself was holding its breath. He approached the kitchen slowly, certain that the noises were coming from there. Pushing the slightly ajar door open, he froze. Daniela, his mother-in-law, stood in front of the open refrigerator. She wore her usual colorful bathrobe, the one adorned with faded purple flowers, and a pair of pink slippers with pom-poms. She seemed to be rummaging through the fridge, her movements slow and almost mechanical. On the table, an open box of oatmeal cookies lay next to a mug with remnants of dry tea at the bottom. Matt hesitated at the threshold, unsure whether to interrupt her or retreat. Just then, a floorboard creaked under his weight, betraying his presence. Daniela spun around, their eyes locking. Her gaze seemed darker than usual, accentuated by the shadows of the kitchen. Her face, covered in a moisturizing mask, wore an expression that was a mix of surprise and annoyance. "Matt, what are you doing up at this hour?" she asked, her voice hoarse and thin. "I woke up and just wanted a glass of water," he replied, trying to sound casual, but he could feel his heart racing and his throat going dry. She remained silent for a moment, then slowly turned back to the stove. "I'll make you some chamomile," she said flatly. Chamomile? That was unusual for her at this hour. Daniela was a practical woman, rarely affectionate, and she never did anything without a reason. But tonight felt different. Or maybe he was just seeing her in a new light. He watched her open the silverware drawer. Her hands trembled slightly, as if she were anxious but trying to hide it. She placed the tea bag in the cup, filled the kettle with water, and moved with a deliberate slowness. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked without looking at him. "I just woke up." "Maybe it was a noise," he said, waiting for her reaction. "Sometimes it happens to me too," she replied. "The night is strange in this house. The noises seem louder, like they're trying to talk." That statement sent chills down his spine. He attempted to laugh, but the sound came out uncertain. When the kettle whistled, Daniela poured the hot water and handed him the cup. Their hands brushed against each other. It felt as if she were waiting for something or wanted to say something but was holding back. A few minutes later, he returned to the bedroom with the cup in hand. Lauren was still peacefully asleep. He slid back under the covers, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing. What was Daniela doing in the kitchen at this hour? What was she looking for? And why did she seem so tense? In the following days, he didn't mention anything to Lauren. He didn't want to create unnecessary tension. But he began to observe Daniela more closely. He noticed that Danielle stepped out of the house one afternoon without telling anyone where he was going. He returned with light bags, always closed, never transparent. One day, curiosity got the better of him, and he peeked out the window. He saw his wife, Sarah, talking to a man near the bus stop. The man wore a dark coat and a hat, and they seemed to exchange something before parting ways in opposite directions. That same evening, while searching for batteries for the remote control, Daniel accidentally opened a drawer in the living room. Among old bills and yellowed photographs, he found a small key, reminiscent of a diary key. He picked it up, turned it over in his fingers, then put it back. But something inside him had been triggered. The following night, the noise returned, but this time it came from the storage closet. He got up slowly, just like before, and approached the door. It was closed, but a sliver of light seeped through the crack. His heart began to race. He placed his hand on the doorknob and held his breath, but he didn't open it. He stepped back. Something told him it wasn't the right moment, but soon it would be. He couldn't decide what was worse, the forced silence he imposed on himself to protect Sarah or the growing unease that gnawed at him more each day. From the outside, everything seemed normal, perhaps too normal, as if the entire house was trying to make him forget that something was wrong, that something or someone was playing a secret game right under everyone's noses. The night after he found the key, he couldn't sleep a wink. He lay on his side, facing the wall, while the ticking of the kitchen clock echoed in the silence like a hammer. He was waiting. Occasionally, he glanced at his phone. 11:48, 11:57, but there were no footsteps in the hallway, no whispers, no doors opening. For a moment, he thought it was just a cruel joke, a way to confuse him and keep him on edge. But the next morning, there was another folded note on his chair at the table. He found it under the tablecloth, tucked just beneath the edge, where no one would notice. He picked it up quietly, opening it with trembling hands. Check the storage closet after 2 a.m. The storage closet. A tiny room at the end of the hallway, filled with junk, boxes of old clothes, and bottles of cleaning supplies. He never went in there, he couldn't even remember what was inside, except for a dim light bulb and an old metal cabinet that smelled of rust. He spent the entire day at work with a knot in his stomach and his mind elsewhere. At one point, his supervisor asked if he was feeling okay, and he replied with a distracted, just a bit of a headache. But he knew it was more than that. It felt as if he were living a double life, as if he had fallen into a story where he didn't know the beginning or, especially, the end. That evening at dinner, everything seemed normal, too normal. Sarah chatted about the technician who was supposed to come check the heating system in their nearly finished home. She laughed as she recounted how her mother had accidentally poured salt into a dessert. He nodded, pretending to laugh along, but he felt the weight of every unspoken word like a stone on his chest. Retreating to their bedroom, he took his phone with him and waited for Sarah to fall asleep. He watched the hands of the clock move. 1:58, 1:59. At 2:01, he got up barefoot, trying to avoid the creaky spots on the floor. The hallway was shrouded in a gray twilight. When he reached the storage closet, the door was slightly ajar. He froze. He didn't remember leaving it like that. He opened it slowly. The bulb overhead was lit. Inside, there were only the boxes, as always, but one had been moved. The metal cabinet, which hadn't opened in years, was now slightly ajar. A yellowed piece of paper had been slipped into the gap. He took it. It wasn't the first time, nor would it be the last. He turned quickly, his heart in his throat, no one behind him, no noise, just his breath. He returned to the bedroom, trying not to make a sound, but that night, he didn't close his eyes. The next day, he tried to act normal, but everything felt laden with meanings that perhaps only he could see: a spoon left out of place, a cup turned upside down, the bathroom door slightly ajar. The evening air in their suburban home felt heavy with unspoken words. As Lorenza settled into bed, she sighed, claiming exhaustion from a long day. "I have a headache," she murmured, reaching for a bottle of pain relievers on the nightstand. He watched her, a knot tightening in his stomach. While she drifted off, he remained in the living room, feigning interest in the news, but his mind was elsewhere, alert for any sign of disturbance. At precisely 11:42 p.m., a faint sound broke the silence, a soft click, like a drawer closing on its own. He moved quietly toward the kitchen, the darkness wrapping around him like a cloak. The hallway was dimly lit, enough to make out shapes. The cabinet above the stove was slightly ajar, the same one he had seen Lorenza's mother, Daniela, at the other night. He approached cautiously. Inside, nestled behind a row of spice jars, lay a small, red leather-bound diary. It was thin, worn at the edges, and he felt an inexplicable pull to it. He took it, retreating to the bathroom for privacy. The fluorescent light flickered as he flipped through the pages. They were filled with brief phrases, dates, and names, some familiar, others foreign. One page caught his eye, written in shaky handwriting. He saw, he shouldn't have. Now it's his turn. Like the others? Who were the others, and what did they see? A chill ran down his spine. He closed the diary and returned it to its hiding place, his heart racing. He didn't want anyone to know he had discovered it, but curiosity had morphed into a gnawing fear. Daniela was hiding something far more significant than he had anticipated. At exactly 2 a.m., he heard footsteps again, but they didn't come toward him. Instead, they moved toward the kitchen. He held his breath, straining to hear what she was doing. Water ran, a cup was set down, a drawer opened, then silence. The next morning, Lorenza informed him that her mother would be staying with a friend for 2 nights, helping her with her sick husband. Relief washed over him, but it was fleeting. The absence of Daniela didn't bring comfort, it only provided more time to reflect, to reread that diary, to piece together the fragments of a puzzle that felt increasingly sinister. With Daniela gone, the house breathed differently. The air felt lighter, the rooms quieter, devoid of the subtle pressure that had weighed on them whenever she was present. Lorenza seemed more relaxed, smiling more often, speaking freely. Yet, he couldn't shake his unease. Every misplaced object, every flicker in the corner of his eye, sent his heart racing. That evening, after dinner, while Lorenza prepared for a video call with an old college friend, he returned to the kitchen, determined to find the diary again. He knew exactly where he had left it, but when he opened the cabinet door, it was gone. The spice jars were missing too, replaced by a perfectly organized row of labeled containers, all aligned with unnerving precision. He stood frozen for a moment, then slowly closed the door, his heart pounding. If he hadn't taken it, someone had either returned it or removed it entirely. Back in the bedroom, he tried to focus on Lorenza's cheerful voice on the phone, her laughter light and genuine, a sound he had come to love. But all he could think about were questions, dark and swirling. The following day, during his lunch break, he visited a nearby internet cafe, searching for the names he had seen in the diary. Most yielded no results, but one did, a woman named Victoria B., found dead in her home under unclear circumstances. There had been no investigation, no suspects, just a brief mention in a local news article. Without knowing why, he snapped a photo of the screen, his mind racing with implications. That evening, as Daniel returned home from work, he found Lorenza in the kitchen, her face lit up with excitement. "Mom's coming back tomorrow," she announced, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm. She said she misses her kitchen, even though she had a great time at Carla's. Daniel's heart sank. Lorenza's innocent smile felt like a weight pressing down on him. He forced a smile in return, but inside, a knot tightened. That night, sleep eluded him. He tossed and turned, haunted by dreams of the diary, its pages blank, devoid of the secrets he had hoped to uncover. In his dreams, Daniela stood behind the pantry door, her head tilted slightly as if trying to gauge his memories. He woke up in a cold sweat, his throat dry and heart racing. The next afternoon, Daniela returned, seemingly in high spirits, carrying a tote filled with fresh vegetables and homemade jam from her friend. She acted as if nothing had happened, as if the previous nights were mere figments of imagination. Yet, a single glance exchanged between them, a fleeting moment while Lorenza was in the bathroom, revealed an unspoken understanding. They both knew. Later that evening, while washing the dishes, Daniela turned to him with her usual tone, "Tomorrow, if you have time, you should help me organize the basement. There are too many old things down there." Her smile was vague, almost cryptic. "Some things need to disappear." Daniel nodded, trying to mask his unease, but the word disappear echoed ominously in his mind. It felt like a message, a warning cloaked in casual conversation. The basement was a small, damp space in the building's lower level, with a single barred window that barely let in any light. It was the kind of place where sounds faded, voices hushed, and forgotten things remained undisturbed. The following day, dressed in an old sweatshirt, he followed Daniela down the creaky stairs. The building felt deserted, Lorenza at work and the air thick with anticipation. When Daniela opened the basement door, a musty smell enveloped them. She flicked on a flashlight and gestured for him to enter. He complied, curiosity piqued. "Grab those boxes over there in the corner," she instructed, pointing to a stack covered by a dusty tarp. "The old ones with blue labels." He bent down, lifting the tarp, and was startled to find not just boxes, but a black, hard-shell briefcase with a rusty metal clasp. He tried to open it. "Stuck." "Not that one," she said, her tone firm. "The labeled ones," I said. He looked up at her, confusion mingling with determination. "What is it?" he asked, his voice steadier than he felt. Daniela met his gaze, her expression shifting. For the first time, she looked away. "A memory," she said softly. "A bad memory." She paused, the weight of her words hanging in the air. "Better not to open it." He wanted to press further, but something in her demeanor told him this wasn't the right moment. He collected the labeled boxes and carried them upstairs, Daniela following silently behind. At dinner that night, she broke the silence. "You know, sometimes it's better not to know certain things, even if you think you should. The truth," she continued, "is often heavier than you think." Lorenza chuckled. "Mom, what kind of talk is that? Have you been watching too many crime documentaries?" But Daniel didn't laugh. Her words felt like a warning, a plea wrapped in humor. That night, he dreamt of the briefcase again, but this time it was open, revealing the diary, a bundle of photographs singed at the edges, and a rusty key. He woke with his heart pounding, realizing he needed to uncover the truth before Daniela decided what he should know or forget. In the following days, his thoughts spiraled around the briefcase in the basement. He struggled to concentrate at work, sleep eluding him. Lorenza began to notice his distraction. "You seem more out of it lately," she remarked one evening while preparing mint tea. Are you sure you're okay? He offered a weary smile, attributing it to the stress of their impending move. But deep down, a part of him was just waiting for the right moment. Daniela seemed to trust that he had let it go. She no longer mentioned the briefcase or the missing diary, but her glances were long and silent, as if she were waiting for something or testing his limits. One evening, while she was out for a usual homeowners association meeting, he took the house key, descended into the basement, and closed the door behind him. The glow from his phone illuminated the space in a dim, flickering light. He made his way straight to the corner where he had seen the briefcase. It was still there. Kneeling before it, he tried the clasp again. Still locked. He remembered seeing a key in the kitchen drawer earlier that week, a small, old-fashioned key that might fit. The thought of it sent a thrill through him, but he hesitated. What if it opened something he wasn't ready to face? But the need for answers was stronger than his fear. He stood up, determination coursing through him, and headed back upstairs, his mind racing with possibilities. Claudio stood in the dimly lit basement, his heart racing as he recalled the old screwdriver and pliers he had seen in the kitchen. He hurried upstairs, grabbed the tools, and descended once more, glancing over his shoulder as if he were being followed. With trembling hands, he approached the briefcase, determined to pry it open. After several tense minutes, the latch finally clicked, releasing a metallic snap that echoed in the silence. He lifted the lid, revealing a collection of items that seemed to belong to another era. A vintage film camera, a thick, bound notebook tied with twine, a sealed plastic envelope containing yellowed letters, a couple of old photographs, and at the bottom, a small set of keys. He picked up the notebook and began to flip through its pages. It was a diary, but not one belonging to Daniela. The handwriting was different, neater, more masculine. The first page bore a name, Claudio Ferri. Personal notes from 1993 to 1998. The name struck a chord deep within him. He read aloud, his voice barely above a whisper, and then it hit him. Claudio Ferri had been Daniela's husband, Lorenza's father, who had died in a car accident when Lorenza was just a teenager. That was the story he had been told. No one spoke of it much, it was a painful loss, they said. But now, with this diary in front of him, the official narrative began to crumble. Flipping through the pages, he found mundane entries at first, grocery lists, work observations, but then the tone shifted. The later pages were filled with strange, almost cryptic phrases. Daniela was hiding something. Call someone, he read aloud. When I get close, she changes the subject. She's afraid I'll find out everything. His pulse quickened as he discovered the envelope. If something happens to me, it's not an accident. He read it all in one breath. When he looked up, sweat trickled down his forehead. He grabbed the envelope, finding letters from Daniela, some dated a year after Claudio Ferri's official death. Letters addressed to someone simply marked as M. His hands trembled as he tucked everything away at the bottom of his backpack. Lorenza was in the living room watching a movie. He sat beside her, trying to appear calm, but inside he was a whirlwind of emotions. That night, he waited until everyone was asleep. He took the notebook and the letters, reading them slowly. Claudio had been investigating something. He wrote about hidden bank accounts, late-night meetings, package exchanges in the basement. He mentioned a certain M, with whom Daniela seemed to have a close but dangerous relationship. Then he found the last note, not on a page, but glued inside the back cover. If you find this, whoever you are, don't trust her. Daniela is not who you think she is, and she is not alone. He read that line over and over, his mind racing. Who was M? What did it mean that she was not alone? He needed to confront her, but he had to be careful. The next day, Lorenzo went out for groceries, leaving him alone with Daniela. He walked into the kitchen where she was brewing coffee. He paused at the threshold. "Can I ask you something?" he said. She turned to him, her expression neutral. "Sure, Claudio. How did your husband really die?" A cold silence fell over the room. She set the spoon down on the table, her demeanor calm but unyielding. "Did the diary tell you anything?" she asked flatly. He felt a chill run through him. "You knew I would find it?" "I knew that one day someone would understand," she paused. "And now here we are." He hadn't expected that reaction, no anger, no threats, just a stark acknowledgement. "What's in the briefcase?" he pressed. "Just truths that no one wants to hear," she replied, turning away and leaving the kitchen as if the conversation had ended. But it wasn't over. That evening, he and Lorenza packed their bags. Their new apartment was ready. Daniela hugged them goodbye, the embrace lingering a moment too long, too silent. As they drove away, Lorenza asked if he was happy to be moving back home. "Yes," he said, though a part of him felt unsettled. Even in their new place, peace eluded him. He couldn't shake the last line from the diary, "Don't trust her. And she is not alone." A week after their move, he received an envelope with no return address in the mailbox. Inside was a single photograph, taken from the hallway of Daniela's house. It showed him opening the briefcase, and scrawled on the back in pen were the words, "I'm still watching you." His hand shook as he held the photo. Lorenza called from the kitchen. He forced a smile, "I'll be right there." Then he ripped the photo into 4 pieces, but deep down, he knew it wasn't over. Subscribe to the channel,